Hey, I'm Dax, head of product over at A8 Labs. So our parent slash sister company of Aptitude. And what we love to do is build apps. I like to say we, but it's more like Tyron. I am the creative and think of the branding, the concepts, the kind of user experience for our apps. And Tyron, I'll let you introduce yourself.
I'm Tyron Foston. I'm the CTO with Aptitude 8. I like to call myself the biggest nerd on the block. I pretty much head our application development and just kind of general product development and teams and things of that nature. I'm a Black male. My pronouns are he, is, and I am sitting in a room with a lot of my children's art and video games in the background.
I repeat that sentiment of video games and what's going on behind me because we'll get to that. So without further ado, what are we talking about today? First of all, thank you everyone for taking us 45 minutes to an hour out of your busy day. I'm sure it's busy to understand what it's like to, number one, build the app, but what happens after that? How do you make something commercialized for the general public, right? So we're going to talk about branding and what that means and the opportunities there to kind of stand out to the rest of the folks that are putting out apps in the ecosystem. We're going to talk about payments and pricing. So how do payments work with HubSpot apps? How do you price them? How does a tier kind of work? Or how does tiering work? We're going to talk about creating and publishing your listing. So what is it like how do you fill out the form? How do you actually get this in the ecosystem? Then we'll talk about reviews and support and distribution. So how do you take care of the people that are utilizing your app, your clients that are, putting this as a part of their workflow? And distribution, how do you get it out there? No one wants to have nobody use it all that time and money you spend on building something great. You want to make sure that that resonates throughout the community. So any questions you have, throw them in the chat. Tyron's going to be managing the moderation for this. No questions, dumb questions, zero questions are dumb questions. So we want to make sure that we answer everything that you have and everything that we know is for you. And we're obviously easily accessible outside of the snafus. So let's start off with branding. One of my favorite parts, right? So you put on your Sunday's best. And I promise everyone here that I will not go on a Seth Godin style of rant about marketing and it's about feeling and, how do you want to change the world and go and mention Apple and all these things that just brought right. We get that, right? You understand branding is something you know when you see it. And the idea here is that this is up to you. Like, you don't have to be fully branded. You don't have to pretty much do anything. You could say your app is a Stripe integration. You can call it Stripe integration. Makes sense, right? But for us, Tyron and I started our original company, Aptitude, and now which they labs. We started it for us. We obviously love video games. It's very clear. Retro video games to be specific, but everything that we've built together in our lives has been about we're our first audience. If we can't wake up and look at what we do and be excited and over the top about it, then it's going to be really hard to get a stranger to feel the same way that we do. And what we cared about was we want to make sure that our apps kind of have the inspiration of something from a video game. We just love it. And it made it easy to relate to. And the way I want people to feel is I want them to have a touch of familiarity, a touch of nostalgia. Those are emotions that you can see, hear, taste. They're very emotional, and people expend their money, people spend their time and energy on things that they feel connected to. And there's, infinite things that you can be connected to, but for us, it was video games. And it makes sense because what is an application? It's pretty much a clicking of a video game. You want it to do something, there is a winning at the end. So our apps, Timerman, Clone Attack, Super G, our customer service portal, which is kind of like the one that was our first original one. It didn't have a name. So I have the antithesis of branding, which is an app called Customer Service Portal, which I lose sleep at night every day. That doesn't have a name, but Associate, Real City, our upcoming app, Zebra, they're all kind of built with this foundation of some sort of game. And the naming is important too. You don't want your app to have a name like Customer Service Portal because there's going to be more than one customer service portal. So we really kind of took that inspiration from kind of vintage games to really have an easy name. And to touch on names, there's clearly some sort of not alliteration, but there's syncopation going on here when I talk about Timerman, Clone Attack, Super G, Associate, Real City. So the 2 to 3 syllables always is easy when you think of a name. You want it to be colloquial. You want it to be easy for someone to say in a conversation or easy to remember. And that's what we care about with feeling, is that it's easy to remember how someone made you feel. It's pretty hard to remember what they said, maybe even what they look like, but if they made you feel a certain way, that's something that's easily recollected and will easily get your app to kind of be sticky and stickier when you come up with that brand. So payments and pricing. Can you pay my bills? Bills. So one real first caveat that I'll throw out there about payments, I'm going to jump right to the last one, is the DIY cash register. So HubSpot does not take any percentage of your app when you list it in the store. I want to call that out first and foremost. So that's a good thing and a bad thing. The bad thing is that you need to actually build out your payments infrastructure. So when people buy our apps or buy any app, they will click out of the install. So not only do you need to build the install process, which you could see how Tyron kind of talked about that in the last session, but when it's time to pay, that's all on you. You need to integrate your payment processor, whether it be Stripe, PayPal, Authorize.net, crypto, whatever you need to do to take currency. You're responsible for that. And not only are you responsible for that cash register, that payments that you need to build, you're also responsible for what we call Tyron, keep me honest here, your allocation, your permissions for who can use it, who can't, if you're using that tier. So Tyron, you want to touch just a quick thing on payments, on how payments are built?
Yeah. So the one thing about it is that not only will you really have to be an expert in your app, but you are going to have to quickly get up to speed on payments in general. And not that you'll have to be a master, but you're going to have to get smart on it really quick, because the good side is you are the steer of your own destiny. The bad part is that you are also the steer of your own destiny. So you kind of have to do it yourself. It's not like it's not like the app store where the app's like, hey, if you make the app, we'll take the money. It's more like you make the app, you make the money. So you are more in control of your fate, but it does require you to kind of expand your skill set there.
Appreciate that backup. So in a high level, when we talk about payments and pricing, you want to make it a no-brainer. You don't want people to have to, as they say, make life decisions at the pump when gas is expensive, right? You just want it to be like, yes, I need this. It solves a problem. I know it's going to be a net positive value for my team. That's where you want it to sit. So we talk about scale of value. Some apps, for example, our app Associate has a tier of how much you use, right? So if the more you use it, the more expensive it is because it's providing you more value. You'll see other apps that charge based upon the amount of revenue you have. So if it's a payments app or something that facilitates or manages payments, you'll commonly find where if you make 2 million a year, you need to pay this. If you make 4 million a year, you have to pay that. And it's the same offering, it's the same feature set, but just because the scale of value is higher, because you're making more money, you're saving more time, or you're saving more money, that's where you're able to kind of price your app as such. We'll also talk about the left digit effect. Now, I won't go too deep into psychology, but $9 seems way less than $10, even though it's literally $1. The same goes why you hear $19.99, only 3 easy payments. All of that stuff makes sense because of our brain's adherence to the leftmost digit to determine value. So a lot of our apps are not on the 9, or we'll do something in the 49 instead of going to 250. There's a lot of psychology, so you can feel free to Google and learn more about the left digit effect and other kind of psychological standards of pricing. People have written extensive papers on that, but in a nutshell, for your app, make sure that you're, conscious of what does that price look like when your knee-jerk reaction to that pricing. I'm going to talk a little bit about feature tiers. Most of our apps in the HubSpot ecosystem are based upon the amount of features that you have. For example, Clone Attack, the basic Clone Attack is $19 per month, and you're able to duplicate contacts, tickets, and deals. Click duplicate, makes it really easy. The next level, you're actually able to use, on the pro tier, you're able to use workflows and be able to duplicate things automatically based upon your workflow experience. And we'll have a third tier, which will be our enterprise, and you'll be able to clone custom objects. So there's a lot of depends on your app. Maybe your app does one thing, but you may not be able to do feature tiers. But a lot of the things that really gauge what you need to do is going to be based upon those features. And as an entrepreneur, as a business person, as an app developer, when you're talking to the business aspect, you want to make sure that there is a way, a stair step to glory, right? You want to make sure that people are utilizing the free, they get the candy at the checkout, they check it out, they're using the app that brings a part of their workflow. And once it's part of the workflow, as you add more features, you could grow along with your clients and bring stair step them up the tiers of your product to try to get more monthly recurring revenue out of that. So again, when you're thinking about your pricing, and there's a common thing to understand is how long is it going to take me to get my investment back in this app? Then that investment is going to be a monthly recurring revenue from your subscription to that app, as well as your churn. And again, these are common terms. You can Google them all day, but understanding that math equation of how many people do I get new per month, how many people leave every month, and how much I invested in my app, you can do that backwards math and kind of find out kind of the pricing. If you want to try to get paid back in a year or 2 years, then you could set your pricing on how much the volume of the volume of your installs and your conversion rate, and we start to get into those mathematics. So those are really important to understand as you're thinking about your pricing. Value creation, again, making it a no-brainer. Like, oh, this is $100 a month, but I get all of this and it saves me X amount of time. It's really good on the marketing front to say, hey, how much is your time worth? We save you 5 hours a week. How much is that to you? And you're only paying X amount per month. So it's again, a no-brainer. So creating and publishing your app. So cue the ribbon cutting. It's time to get it. And the good thing is, everyone, it's just a form. There's nothing really crazy about it. I won't have to walk through going to upload and add your images and add screenshots and talk about your features, but it's just a form. You'll be able to, once you create your dev account, as Tyron talked about in the past couple of sessions, there's a place that you can actually list your app. So you go to the app listing page and you build this out. You add your screenshots, you'll add your video, and all of the details. So one of the great things that I want to talk about real quick is the video, right? So again, we're nerds. We care about how it feels to us when we look at our videos, and our videos are really lo-fi, but they are more than a product demo. They are a commercial. We imagine that if you watch this, you should be entertained and you should get the gist of what you're doing, what the app does. You don't want to go through every single feature of the app does this. You don't want to do, and again, this is my recommendation, but to not just do a click through of here's my app does this, watch me talk over clicking the screen. People don't want that. People want to be entertained, period, at all times, right? So putting some humor, being yourself, bringing out your inner, bring out who you are, because people buy from people, right? And this is a self-service environment. They're going to go in the app store looking to solve a problem. And your very first thing they're going to see is either the first picture in the listing or a video. You'd rather them see that video. And again, less than 2 minutes, try to outline your formula of here's the problem, here's our solution, here's why it works, here's how much it costs, here's how you can install it. Right? So those are super important to have in the video, and as well as your screenshots so that you can fully kind of acclimate of what am I getting in this app. So the knowledge base is going to be very important too, so that you can deflect people asking silly questions or common questions is a better way to say it about your app. So within the application process, as you build it, as you fill out your form, there's going to be a lot of places to put your knowledge base for not only your knowledge base as a company, but for this particular app and the getting started guide. So as you build your app, you need to start thinking of the questions that people may ask and be way ahead of them by creating a knowledge base, either using HubSpot's knowledge base or any other knowledge base software that you feel. You'll be able to add those links in this kind of application process. So one thing to keep in mind is that if you're looking to do some marketing, and based upon this launch, there is a 10-day SLA for publishing an app. So by the time you submit that app, they're going to get back to you within 10 days. So it's not an instant time. I know Gina will be proud that I'll let that be known, but 10 days is going to be how much that you can expect to wait before it gets approved, because there's lots of different approvals. Every time you edit your listing, it needs to go through that approval process again. So 10 days is what you should kind of set out to be prepared for in the nail biting, waiting for it to go live. So ecosystem SEO is pretty important because HubSpot has a powerful domain, and we won't go too deep on the SEO chain, but HubSpot has a powerful domain, and the ecosystem subdomain is powerful as well. and that ranks in Google search or DuckDuckGo, however you feel about your price. The more information that you can put on the listing, the better, because it will be a powerful tool in getting that organic search response to not only your app, but your company as well. This is a bona fide listing that shines for everyone. So be really mindful of not only the name of your application, but the ways in which you're able to add more and more features, details, etc., within the listing. Secret tip is if the super secret tip, if you're able to, when you create your account, ask to update the URL. And I only know that because our old company in the URL by default. And I asked, hey, can we get our old company out and put in a Labs URL? And she said, what? Gina is one of the people that runs the approval process over at HubSpot. So I appreciate her. Shout out to Gina. You can ask to get your URL updated. So that's, again, another check that you can do to try to optimize your listing, because you don't really get that much information or analytics about your listing. But if you know ahead of time to plan for that optimization, you can get your URL changed or optimized based upon what you'd like. So hopefully this should let everybody do that. But since you hit it's a nice tip you can get for paying for joining up on this session. And lastly, with the listing is certification. So you get this pretty badge that says HubSpot Certified App if you go through the certification process. And I haven't spoken to anyone that's gone through the certification process except for Tyron and myself. So, and I talk to myself all the time. It is a doozy. So as you build out your app, Tyron will be able to kind of give us a couple tidbits of what to look out for, because again, shout out to our friends Isaac and Marina over at the certification program. They are very good at what they do. I'm surprised they don't have 3 letters at the end of their names, because it is a very, very rigorous testing process, because it is about the quality. HubSpot is going really deep on developers as we have this masterclass, and we don't want anything crappy, anything bad, anything broken, anything invalid in the ecosystem. We'll get to the problem. We'll get to the problem that Atari had when we talk about video games, where everybody and their mom can make an Atari game, and it's horrible, which led to the pseudo demise of the video game industry. So Tyron, if you want to just give some kind of specs on what we've gone through during the certification process, and we're still going through in this process.
Still going through it. Yeah. So some of the things that they're definitely going to be looking at is app performance. And that's really going to be gauged by the way you are accessing the HubSpot API. So some of the things they'll be looking at is, hey, I looked at your app, it looks like you have these scopes chosen for your app. Does the objects you're giving permission to match what's kind of what we see in the logs in terms of requests and alterations and stuff like that? Because if they don't, one of the recommendations is going to be like, hey, it looks like you are requesting data to deals, but you don't really do any deals. You need to remove the deal scope from your app. And it's a good thing because it helps reduce your risk. I mean, the certification team is going to be really thorough. They're going to be looking at performance. They're going to be looking at permissions. They're going to be looking at the content of your app. And this is all it may feel brutal sometimes.
Very.
Yeah. But understand that the benefits of the certification are so wildly over the top. It's so worth it. And the team really does genuinely want to make sure that you have a good app that is great for public consumption. So just know that your app needs to be really doing well in terms of performance. It's going to be such a huge impact because they are really trying to ensure that the user experience is fantastic across the board.
Yeah, great. So they are ridiculously great resources to make sure that the error codes are specifically outlined. I mean, we submitted apps for certification and gotten parchments back for ways to optimize. Right? It's not a belittling by anything. It's, hey, we need X, Y, Z to be below a certain percentage of errors. And I mean, they're really, really good. They surprise us every single time. We're just like, wow, you guys know exactly what's going on. To our detriment, but it makes us better at it. And that certification process is available for your app after 6 months of being listed in the store, because they're going to look at your installs, they're going to look at your uninstalls, potentially reviews, making sure that it's providing value to the HubSpot community. If you are part of one of the app accelerators, so you can always ping us to get more information about the app accelerator. you will able to get your app certified in 3 months. So you get a little bit of an expedited approach to this, but it all depends on how good your app performs on a technical level. Next slide. Distribution. So your app is listed. Awesome. You got that approval, pop the champagne. Now, how are you going to get people to install? And Facebook ads won't save at all. This is a really, this is a very interesting challenge that even we're going through currently to how do you find someone that uses HubSpot that has a specific potentially tier of HubSpot that has a specific problem that you need to solve. I think there's a good book called Zero to Sold for a lot of you app developers out there that just talks about you need to solve a specific set of problems for a specific set of people and make your application a part of their workflow. And it's really difficult to find those people because that's how niche it is, right? So we have a couple of different tips and techniques that we're leveraging that would be probably helpful for everyone to understand and know. So one thing you can do is do nothing. It's infinitely easier to do nothing than to do something. So you can just list it and just hope, list and pray is what we call it. Because again, you're gonna get the search volume because it ranks for your given, depending on how you optimized your listing. And people are wanting HubSpot reps, solutions engineers, sales reps are going to be looking to solve problems that they have for prospects, and they'll be looking in the ecosystem. So you could get some accidental installs organically. That's an option, right? It's very boring, as you would say. But that other one is understanding HubSpot reps, getting to know some of the reps that are in the industry, reaching out on LinkedIn. That's someone maybe that is in your niche, if you're in education, look and see who's talking about education on LinkedIn at HubSpot. See if you can reach out and say, hey, I have a tool that helps people in education do X, Y, and Z. So remember, and I like to say that your audience, even if you're in the services side, or if you're in the application side, your audience really should be HubSpot, right? The reps, the solution engineers, people like Dennis, right? They're the ones that are closest to not only HubSpot internally, but closest to the prospects and current clients. So understanding and making sure that you're aware, and again, it goes all the way back to branding. Do they remember that app when the time comes, when that client asks, hey, how do you duplicate something? Are they going to remember ClickTech? Are they going to remember the app that associates things? That's really how, again, understanding who your audience is when you talk about distribution. So how-to content. As we're building as we're building out this content, this masterclass on how to build an app and list an app, there's not a lot of content out there around specific use cases for HubSpot. HubSpot does a great job of putting out, let's say from the mountaintops of how it should work on their platform, but peer content creation is kind of light. So there's a huge opportunity for anyone out there right now. That's why we're so excited to have this class, because there's a huge opportunity for everyone to start to become thought leaders. I would admit to myself and Tyron, it's not like we've been doing this for 10 years. We haven't. We're here, but we banged our head against the wall. We have a lot of scars and dents about how to make this work because we had to learn as we go. And as you go through that process of learning in your specific use case and your specific niche, building that YouTube content, building that LinkedIn content, building your blog, all of that is going to matter because this is it's a big world, but it is a small world as well. So really doubling down on your knowledge base, doubling down on the content that you create, saying if your app makes coffee for HubSpot, every time you get a new lead, the coffee maker starts. Make the video, how to make coffee with HubSpot, right? You're showing it, but you're showing your app. Okay.
I just want to throw it in to be an evangelist for your own product. Maybe you want to talk about the wall art that we do and how we are just mega pumped about, how we believe so much in our apps.
Yeah, that's a huge one, right? So if you're not talking about it, no one else is going to talk. And one of the things that I'd like to do with any brand that I would build is make it tangible. It's always a thing if it's an app in the app store, but can you see it? Can you feel it? Is there something that looks? So in Tyron has an art piece behind him. It's Tyron Man, our app Tyron Man. We built wall art for everything. So when we're talking to prospects, it's not that we just have this thing, right? Oh, we're just trying to sell a widget. No, you don't have to buy our widget because we use our widget and we love our widget. And we're going to love it if it makes no money, right? To have that type of passion for something is what gets people intoxicated on the concept and the feeling and the belief, right? We take this a lot deeper. We take this a lot. We take it more than we built an app to sell. We take it to, hey, oh yeah, we take it to, hey, we did this and we have it for all of our apps because we care about it. We want to look at it and wake up every single day. So we might sound crazy because we are crazy. And again, token app, and we are the crazy ones, right? But in reality, it's just about, is it real? Does it feel real? Is it memorable? And as you build that content around it, as you touch on this tangibility, it just starts to snowball. So with that said, the community forums for the HubSpot community, the HubSpot feature forum, the Facebook HubSpot users group, those are all huge places where you can provide value for people that are looking potentially for a problem that your app could solve, right? And no one's going to flame you for actually giving them a solution, right? If there is a solution, hey, it may cost money, get over it. Things do cost money, but solutions are priceless. And the peace of mind to having something else less to worry about is huge. So I highly recommend creating your community HubSpot account, looking at the feature forums, which are also really, or the feature request forums, which are also really good fishing spots for ideas for, problems to solve with the app. So those are all great places to hang out. We always are trying to provide value. Again, value first, and that's where you'll start to see people trickling into the app, asking questions, doing demos. Hey, can I demo your software? Can you do an app demo? Of course. Things like that are going to be really big. And last but not least is service clients. So I don't know who all is around in this class, but if you do have a service or consulting aspect, a lot of those people are going to have problems to solve, or a lot of your current service clients, as you build something new, could retroactively benefit from your app. All of our original ideas for apps, which were the customer service portal before HubSpot had their own portal, and Tyron, which was about 3 years ago, we came out with Tyron just for a couple of different clients that I had. That's where everything started. That's the genesis of our apps. It was a service client that we were doing migration for, or we were doing something else for, had a need. We found that need was widespread. We built something to solve, right? So whether you have existing service clients that can help bubble up those ideas, or are users of the app, that's going to be a big deal. So reviews and support. Well, you want to aim to public release. Once your app is out, once your app is being downloaded, you've done some distribution, you've done some content, you've done some videos, you've done a little bit of blogging to get some content around it. What happens when people are using it? So the biggest thing I like to do, and we as a company like to do, is just to reach out. You install the app. That's a reason to talk to you. Why out of everything you could have done today, did you install this app? I would love to know. And I would love to make sure that you get the best value of it. So doing demos, performing those walkthroughs, hand holding, that is a beautiful, beautiful thing to make people feel comfortable, right? Make people feel like they belong, make people feel like they're being taken care of, because everybody just wants to be taken care of. So having that no support, just send an email to us, that doesn't scale. But in the beginning, when you're first launching, you got to do things that don't scale. You got to just touch everybody as much as possible, right? So proactively reaching out is one of our core kind of concepts and core missions and thesis that we stand by with all of our apps. We want to make sure that you know exactly what you got, you know how to use it, and you know if it's a fit for you or not. So then we talk about reviews and review links. So within your listing, once you have it published, there is a place where you just go into your listing info and you can get a review link. So reviews are everything. I'm sure somebody's shopped in Amazon or someone's been on Yelp. You're not going to pay attention to anything that has a 1-star, and you're going to more flock to something that has 5 stars. Same thing, same psychology goes in the ecosystem. There's a rating system where people actually can leave reviews, and they're really thoughtful, and it really helps to see if it's a fit, because people talk about their use case. People talk about, maybe the support, maybe they'll show you some love. Now that's super important. And you're able to facilitate that with an easy, hey, leave a review link. And that's pretty much the only way, it's the quickest way for a user, a supporter, to leave a review for your app. Also, we really focus on in-app touch points. So using HubSpot live chat within our portal, where people do administration for the apps. If they have one or more of our apps, you're able to hit us on live chat. Obviously, there's the tooltips that we put in within the app, and our actual videos, knowledge base are all accessible from within our apps. So we want to make sure that there's no mystery clicking around when you're looking for what to do next. Also, when there's uninstall surveys. So this is something that HubSpot provides. When people uninstall your app, I believe it's like 3 or 4 days later, they get an email that says, "Hey, would you like to review or leave a survey of why you uninstalled the app?" And this is going to be a huge feedback loop for why it wasn't a fit. Maybe it's like, "Hey, we didn't need it anymore. Hey, it wasn't what we expected." But again, that's a way for you to understand and iterate on your app to make it better for the people that are using it, or find a bug or something that people weren't trying to be public about. They're like, "Hey, it didn't work because of X, Y, and Z." You'll get that information and be able to run that right around. And then again, pushing updates from feedback. You can't talk to your clients enough. It's really important to understand that loop of updates. And Tyrone, I wanted you to touch on building the app in a modular fashion so that it is easier to update, because again, updates with apps are their own thing. So if you just want to touch on that for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, so for sure, and this is really more of a principle of software development in general, but you should never think that the app you are going to build is it. Like once it's out into the wild, that's it. You should always be thinking about extensibility of my app. What's version 2? What's version 3? What's version 4 look like? Because HubSpot capabilities, if you don't know, HubSpot work it from a developer's standpoint, it feels like a startup with $1 billion. And these guys are cranking out new capabilities every month. Every month there's something new. And so you are going to want to be able to capture a lot of those new functionalities that they release to you, which is going to benefit your app, which is going to benefit your customers. So you want to really, you always want to approach things in a very OOP or very MVC like way. You should always be thinking like, how can I extend this? How can I add functionality to this now and not break everything, down the line? How can I add more data from the accounting API and where will that go? How can I add more data from new functionality in the contacts API and where will that go? So always think that something newer and greater and bigger and better is around the corner when it comes to HubSpot capabilities.
Appreciate that. So that's it's a big part of, number one, it's a big part of just iterating on the app, but number two, it's also a big opportunity for service opportunities. So if you have the infrastructure to provide an extra consulting, maybe even app customization for an extra cost, that's a big driver of revenue. That was a big driver for us early on in our Appiness days, where we would have an app, and because of what the app does, they're like, "Hey, can you do this? Or can you add that? Or hey, something completely unrelated. Yeah, I know you fixed my toilet, but can you jump on the roof and see if my skylights are going to be?" All of that happens more than you would imagine. And having the infrastructure to potentially either have a partner that can help fulfill on those needs, or just being able to add a customization to your app. That's a really big deal and a lot of value, because every business needs customization. I mean, I could write that from the mountaintop. Every time we came out with an app that a larger company wanted to use, it's the first question is like, "Hey, can you make it do this? Because we need X, Y, and Z." And that's again, we were really fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to be able to support that, thanks to Tyron. But we realized that you have to be ready for that type of support. And one thing I did actually skip over with support is, I'm not tapping you again, is understanding and delineating who is going to support your app, right? Whether is the developer going to be the support, that's not going to work. Do you have a first line of defense against the worst scum of the universe? Not to call client scum, but you get the gist of the Men in Black. But Tyrone, talk about a little bit about what it's like to support an application.
Yeah. So the things you're going to come across around support are going to be a handful of things that are genuinely wrong with your app that you just simply did not foresee. And the smaller the team, the more this is going to happen. And also the more complex of your app, the more this is going to happen. And then there are going to be a lot of, hey, your app is broken, because there's a difference in expectations versus how the app actually works. This is going to happen no matter what. There's literally no escaping it. And so what you need to really be able to do is to differentiate like what is a bad user experience from something programmatically that probably just kind of slipped through the cracks. I would say as your app gains momentum in terms of installs, you will notice a few things. One, most smaller apps start off where the developers are the support team. And what you're going to happen is there's going to be enough of those two strange things that I'm telling you about, where your developers will begin to get bogged down in doing support. And that is going to affect your development cycle for feature releases, bug releases, and things of that nature. So at some point, you will have to consider, how do I protect my developers? A lot of app partners may know, hey, there's an app that I like. It's really cool. I go to ask these guys if they'll do something. They said it's going to take 2-3 months. This is why. Because those developers are usually, they've got a month or two of work ahead of them. And then here you come with your support and desires. Nothing wrong with that. Just understanding that your developers are probably going to need someone in front of them who can speak the language of the client and also speak the language of the developer. And it's going to help protect your development team. And it's going to help you keep your pacing of new releases and stuff.
Thanks so much for that. So we're really big on support. We pride ourselves on service, as the genie said from Aladdin. I've got so many references of old movies on what's going on right now, but it that's what matters. Like, how do you take care of people? Because we've broken many things. I've called Tyron at 3 a.m. over, hey, someone is upset. We have to do something now because I'm sensitive. And it shines them. And that's what makes people want to stick around and want to be a part of what you're building. And it's just something that we really, I suggest and I recommend to people that are in this position, that they're going to provide value. They're going to build, some people are going to build a business around what you do. It's just to be there when it breaks. Admit it, it broke. Things break. I'm sorry. How can I make it work? Right. It's the silence that kills people when they don't get a response. Right. So that's a big one for us. So I'll go to the next slide, which should be the big finale, questions. So I want to jump real quick into the QA, because I know there's a couple questions I've been dying to say something. Tyron, you got something to say?
So we've got a few questions in here. Number one from Peter Nicholas. Your recommendation for engaging and motivating partners to sell your app to their clients?
I got something to say for that one. So we've always thought about, how do you get a pseudo affiliate program, right? Or something of the like, to get other people promoting your app. And the key here is, number one, if you did some sort of rev share, I don't think anybody's going to care, right? Our apps are, especially if our apps are $20, $50, $100, getting $10 a month is not as attractive as one would imagine. I mean, for me, I'm okay with it. But the idea here is, when you open up that line of communication, right? The partners, it's not hard to find out who are HubSpot partners. It's not hard to find out who are high level HubSpot partners, and just saying, hey, I have this solution. If there's a client that you have that might have this solution, let me know, right? That, just opening up the relationships within the partner community. Because again, we're all about that, and we are partners. I have no problem talking to another partner, a competitor, which is not even true, about, hey, we have this solution. We do have a lot of partners that utilize our apps that their clients just buy them. But it's a part of a bigger offering for those partners. Those partners are doing tons of stuff. They're doing RevOps, they're doing marketing setups, they're doing all this stuff, and they have this one pinch. And if there's an app that solves it, that's another partner has built, I mean, I would do the same thing. There's somebody else. I mean, and most of the apps that are built by other partners that we've had to use, we use them. I want to shout out to a big shout out to Impulse Creative for a lot of things that they're building. Is a trailblazer. Shout out to Remington, like, just ridiculous amount of knowledge and experience in building things, and I'll always tap him. And I'm thankful that he answers the phone, because of the amount of experience and thus the few people that are in this realm. There's no animosity or anything with the partners. So everybody's been super nice as far as our experience of, hey, you have something that we need, that one of our clients needs. We're going to buy that. No questions asked, any questions. It's same for us. So that's actually a really good question. So I appreciate it, Peter, because again, who is your audience? It's the people that are serving the people that use HubSpot. That's HubSpot reps, HubSpot internal employees, and HubSpot partners, the layer above the clients and prospects. So great question. I should have said something about that during it. So it's a great question.
All right. Yeah. Another question from Peter Nicholas. How do you guide people wanting support when they should be going to HubSpot support? versus escalating with your own app support? Like, how do you help delineate that?
Oh, Peter's got great questions right now. So shout out to Peter. So this is a very, very challenging thing because and we go through it, I wouldn't say all the time, but we're currently going through a couple different issues because, for example, if you set up one of our apps, you set it up, it does exactly what it's supposed to do, but it messes up your HubSpot. Or you just have a couple questions and the first thing you want to do is hit that chat button in the lower right of HubSpot. A kind HubSpot rep is going to show up and they're going to be like, I have no idea what you're talking about, ma'am or sir. You have to reach out to the developer support. So the main thing that we do is we preempt that by reaching out. Hey, thanks for installing. Here's a couple quick guides, utilizing the marketing automation, which is one thing I'm actually going to probably touch on about integrating your app into HubSpot, which is a pretty good thing to talk about. But having that automation, when someone installs your app, we send out, welcome email flow and be proactive and preemptive on support. If you have any questions, hit us up. We don't explicitly say HubSpot can't help you because they can in a lot of things because your question may be HubSpot specific, just a little sprinkling of an application on top. But it is important to reach out first to say we are the ones to support because if people are going to go to HubSpot, HubSpot's going to say we have no idea what you're talking about, and it's going to end up being a bad experience for everyone. So no one wants that. We make sure that again in our app we have access to say questions, email us. Questions, email us in the footer of every type of thing in the CRM card, in the modal that pops up. We make sure that you can reach out, that there are the touch points to reach out to us if there are any challenges. But you will in your app, you will have people that will reach out to HubSpot support. And as we've kind of mentioned a lot in these sessions, that when you're building a HubSpot app, you're not really building a HubSpot app. You're building an app that connects to HubSpot. So understanding that separation is going to be key in everything that you do to speak to your clients.
All right. Last question here again from Peter. It's kind of maybe a little removed from this. Any recommendations on using a billing provider instead of do-it-yourself / Stripe or ChargeBee?
Yeah, that one is at the toughie, right? So you're pretty much limited to anything that you kind of know. We originally started off with PayPal because we knew PayPal really easily. We could get up and running really quickly. Obviously most, when you go upstream up to mid-market, most people don't really want to use PayPal. You want to get something like a Stripe so they can just enter in a credit card and call it a day. So I would just recommend anything that you can code up that works and allows you to take money. So ChargeBee works. Since it's a payment processor, Stripe works. If you have relationships even lower on the level or on lower level of payments, so you might get something cheaper with less percentage. Anything pretty much works. But the key here is that you have to build all of that. You have to build that within your app. You have to build that that onboarding flow to install your app. You have to build all of that stuff. Again, so you're building your own application that just happens to link to HubSpot, and payments are no different. So managing subscriptions, recurring payments, cancellations, upgrades, downgrades, all of that you have to build. HubSpot's not at the point where they manage that billing because you're going to have to do invoicing. And you will get the question of, hey, how does this work? Do I just install the app and I get a bill at HubSpot and it's going to be on my bill? How does that work? And you have to explain that that's not how it works yet. So,
yeah, like you have to be more than just a developer. You got to be a developer, a networker, and know a little bit about payments as well. So, it's kind of the nature of the beast.
Yeah, it's a difficult gig. That's why there's only a few of us here. And you guys have kind of the first mover advantage of it's still early. This is all still early, very, very, very early in what HubSpot's looking to do. So having the kind of the tools to know what it takes now, and once it gets easier, you're already going to have a leg up of understanding the ecosystem, understanding the connections, all the stuff that Tyron talked about in the past 2 sessions about the architecture of an app, what it takes. You're going to be well ahead of that. And one of the things I wanted to touch on was that was how your marketing and your branding and how you reach out to customers is going to be tied into HubSpot. So all of our apps are integrated with our HubSpot. So that's almost like that's another app within an app. Like how do you build your external app, but you want to build in the management and the support tier within HubSpot. So for example, when someone wants to upgrade their subscription to a given app, In our, since we have this integration with all of our apps, our support team can go into HubSpot, click on that person, see their subscriptions, upgrade, downgrade, resend an invoice. All of that is within HubSpot. So I highly recommend integrating that to make your life easier, to see who's installing, how long they've had it, their total MRR. All of that is something that is really powerful because again, you are the leader of HubSpot. You are going to be the thought leader. So your apps should definitely be connected into HubSpot as well as it does something net new or integrates with HubSpot for commercialized people. So, but that's all I had for everyone. I don't know if there's any other questions we want to pop into the chat, but I've been very, very thankful. I'm so thankful and grateful for everyone that showed up today out of their busy day. Just talk about what does an app do to get people to install? How does it make one feel? What does the branding look like? How do you get it out there? How do you even install it? How do you certify it? All those things we love talking about. We could talk about all day. So you can find us anywhere you want. We're not hard to find. We're sitting in our rooms all day. So we're just thankful for everyone.
You know, an unfortunate thing about being a host is that I can't ask questions in the QA, and I have questions for you if you don't mind me asking.
Oh, please.
All right. Question 1. What is an acceptable churn rate?
That is a great question. So people usually want to churn below like 1 to 2%, almost like a regular e-commerce conversion rate. Again, that is something that's going to go business to business, but I don't have ours off the top, but it's less than that. So we're really thankful for the products that we have. But if you're at 1 to 2%, I would kind of start to worry once it gets a little bit higher because that people are not, it's not a part of their workflow is what that smells like, right? That means they're just kind of using it and they may not need it, or they may need it a little bit, but they found a better solution. So it's always about understanding when people feel like they're churning. And that's again, the integration into HubSpot, for example, or associate, we can tell how many people or how many associations people are making. And we could set alerts to say, this person does 2,000, 2,000, 100, 2, 3. That's a risk, right? They must have found either there's no use for the app and we're gladly say, hey, we don't need it. I'm glad it helped you out while it did. But be able to predict that churn and do something about it is again, a benefit of integrating into HubSpot and knowing your metrics.
And another question is, how often or do you evaluate the actual cost of your app? I mean, do you think sometimes like maybe I'm charging too much or too little or?
So we look at that frequently just to understand. We spend a lot of time before we make that pricing of knowing our model since we have other apps. But we do like to revisit pricing as new tiers come out and new products are available. For example, with QuoteTech, now that we have the quotes API that's coming out, we'll be able to clone quotes. And it's about, is that going to be extra? Is that just what tiers that fit in? Or if we didn't have a third tier, which some apps didn't have 3 tiers, we may add a new tier with this enterprise type of feature. So I think it's more along the lines of when features and new extensibility comes from HubSpot, are we able to add that in and potentially for a larger value for the client?
And I'll ask one last question, and I promise I'll stop. Tiers, did you always do that? Or was that something like one day you said, you know what, we're going to be putting up some new features, so let's start doing a tiered system? And on top of that, do you find tiered systems more successful than non-tiered systems?
I would say that we find it success. We build it as such. So everything that we kind of came out with originally was we want to have tiers because that's just kind of how SaaS products work. And it's been really successful to make sure that people are getting exactly what they need and that our further investment into the product is going to be matched by a higher MRR for that thing. For everything has been mostly like, I would say we started with a lot of things having a free tier. If they had, and then just so that people can use it, roll the dice. So associate or customer portal still have a free tier. But again, this is liquid. HubSpot came out with their portal. So we have no need for a free tier of our portal because HubSpot's portal is the free tier now. And fortunately, we have those 2 further tiers based upon the needs of the client. A real good example for this is Tyron. So Tyron out of the box, it has a cost for the basic, but there is more things that you can time. The amount of things that you can time on the pro tier, which is the middle tier, is different than what you could do on the enterprise tier. In the enterprise tier, you can time deals and tickets. So we kind of build our products in the beginning with the feature sets built for tiers.
Cool. All right. I promise I'm done. You
Peter.
can send the bill in the mail, you know.
I want to ask, Peter had a question. So integrated HubSpot app billing, I don't know when that's coming. I know that we want it to happen because we want HubSpot to take some of our money so that they can also use some of the resource. We can use some of their infrastructure. Because again, our apps are on our servers. We have to do all this architecture. You have to be an expert in architecture and cloud computing, all this stuff. And in reality, we'd like to say, hey, HubSpot, here's the app. Run it on your platform. We got all the tools and stuff to run it. And we'll go ahead and take a cut. That's totally fine. Because that would just speed up the way that we can iterate on the product. That speeds up the amount of new people that can come in because it's all run on HubSpot infrastructure. And I'm sure that as soon as that happens, as soon as HubSpot sees that they can make money, this is a line item on the revenue on the balance sheet, that they will then they will really take that in. But I don't have a date, but hopefully sooner than later. Again, that should be for everyone should ring out if they start taking a percentage or even, up to a certain amount is free. And then we gotta take our cut, be happy for them to do so.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Once again, great content. Anyone here who has not seen the first 2 sessions, please go ahead and get onto our developer YouTube channel. Links out there somewhere. And join us next week on Wednesday, same time, where we'll do the last session. Again, thanks, guys. Have a great day, okay?
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.